Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at how to make your brain work for you, especially at work.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at excerpts from the book, Your Brain at Work.
Okay.
And our mission today is to understand our brain's limitations
Yeah.
and uncover some productivity hacks. So get ready for some serious brain power boosting.
We often focus on things like willpower and time management when we talk about productivity. But this book dives into something much deeper, the actual biological limits of our brains.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So it's not just about working harder, it's about working smarter by understanding how our brains actually function.
Yeah.
The book talks about this concept called the hungry brain. What's that all about?
Well, imagine your prefrontal cortex,
Okay.
which is the part of your brain that's responsible for decision making and focus, as like a theater stage. There's limited space,
Okay.
and each spotlight, representing a mental task,
Uh-huh.
uses a ton of energy.
So you're saying, mental effort is like a workout for our brains.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
no wonder I feel like I need a nap after a long day of decisions.
Right.
It makes sense that the book says that, mental effort burns fuel, just like physical exertion,
Yes,
depleting those energy stores.
absolutely. And just like you would fuel your body for a physical workout, you need to fuel your brain for mental tasks.
Now that makes me think about how I, grab that extra cup of coffee mid-morning when I hit that slump.
Yeah.
But what does the book say about, effectively fueling our brains?
Well, one of the key takeaways is recognizing the importance of things like breaks and nutrition. Just as an athlete needs rest and proper food to perform well,
Yeah.
our brains need downtime and nourishing foods to function optimally as well.
Okay, so our brain is like a muscle that gets tired.
Yeah.
How can we apply that to, our workday? Should we be, scheduling the toughest tasks for the morning when we're fresh?
Yeah.
Does the book give any, specific examples?
Absolutely. The book talks about prioritization being key. Remember that limited stage space?
Yeah.
So recalling recent events is easy. It's like the audience is in the front row.
Okay.
But envisioning the future or making complex decisions is like searching for actors in the back of the theater, requiring way more effort.
Well, the book compares it to ski slopes, right?
Right. Yeah.
Easy tasks are, bunny slopes, while complex decisions are those challenging black diamond runs.
That's the analogy. So don't waste your peak mental energy on things like emails or mindless tasks. Tackle the most challenging strategic things first when your brain is fueled and focused. It's about front-loading your day with those high-energy tasks.
I like that tip. It reminds me of something else the book mentioned, visualization.
Yes.
It explains how creating mental pictures, it engages the visual cortex, which helps us process information more efficiently. I'm curious, have you, personally used any visualization techniques in your work?
Definitely. It's surprisingly powerful, actually. For example, when I'm planning a project, I'll often sketch out the workflow or create a mind map.
Yeah.
Getting it out of my head and onto paper helps me grasp the big picture and identify potential roadblocks.
I've always been a very visual learner,
Yeah.
but I never really connected it to productivity before.
Right.
I'm definitely going to try that. It's kind of like those Hollywood movie pitches
Yeah.
where they simplify a really complex story into a really captivating image.
Yes.
Remember how Alien was pitched as Jaws in space?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's about leveraging our brain's natural affinity for, visual processing.
Yes, it is. And speaking of processing,
Yeah.
the book highlights that our stage capacity is shockingly small.
Okay.
We often hear we can remember 7 things at a time,
Yeah.
but research suggests it's closer to 4, maybe even just 1 thing accurately.
Wow, that is way less than I thought.
Yeah.
No wonder meetings can be so unproductive.
Right.
Everyone's mental stage is just overflowing with information.
Absolutely. And that's why the book emphasizes this idea of chunking information.
Okay.
Think of chess masters who memorize board positions by grouping pieces into meaningful chunks rather than trying to remember each piece individually. It's a strategy we can all use.
So for the rest of us who aren't chess masters, how can we apply this to our daily lives?
Well, break down your to-do list into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Okay.
Instead of write a report, it becomes outline key points,
Yeah.
gather data, draft sections, and so on.
Okay.
Your brain will thank you for the mental breathing room.
Oh, that's a game changer. That makes those overwhelming tasks seem much more approachable. Now let's debunk a myth. Multitasking.
Multitasking.
Right.
The book makes it crystal clear. True multitasking is a myth. What we call multitasking is actually task switching, which hurts accuracy and performance.
And the book shared this startling fact that multitasking can lower IQ as much as sleep deprivation. Wow. Particularly in men.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
It really is. It's like we're actively making ourselves less intelligent when we try to do too much at once.
Yeah.
We've all felt that scattered feeling, that mental dizziness when we're juggling too many things.
For you, what's been like the biggest challenge in overcoming the multitasking habit?
Honestly, it's the constant barrage of notifications and the urge to stay connected all the time. But I've learned that setting boundaries, like designating specific times for email and turning off notifications, has a huge impact on my focus and productivity.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's creating those distraction-free zones.
Right.
Both externally and internally, in our minds.
Precisely. Speaking of distractions,
Yeah.
the book dives into the two types, external and internal.
Okay.
External distractions are those obvious culprits, like emails, notifications, and interruptions from colleagues.
Yeah.
But the internal ones, those wandering thoughts, unresolved issues,
Right.
and that mental chatter, those are the trickier ones to manage.
The book talks about our brain's novelty bias, right?
Yes.
We're constantly scanning for new things.
Yeah.
And that's where the default network kicks in.
Uh-huh.
When we're not actively focused on something external, our minds tend to wander inward.
Exactly. So creating those distraction-free zones is crucial. It's not just about turning off your phone. It's about putting it in another room.
Oh, wow.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Okay, great point. All right, last concept for part 1. Finding your flow state.
Flow state. The book explains this idea of an inverted U curve,
Okay.
where our performance peaks at moderate levels of stress.
Mm-hmm.
Too little stress, and we get bored and unmotivated.
Yeah,
Too much, and we freeze up and can't think straight.
right.
There's that sweet spot in the middle where we're alert, engaged, and performing at our best.
I love that feeling of being in flow, but it seems so elusive.
Yeah.
Does the book give any practical advice on how to get into that state more often?
It absolutely does. It starts with understanding the conditions that are conducive to flow. The book talks about the importance of things like having clear goals,
Okay.
immediate feedback,
Uh-huh.
and a sense of control over the task at hand.
And it also emphasizes finding that balance between challenge and skill. Right. If a task is too easy, we get bored. Too difficult, and we get frustrated. But if it's right at the edge of our ability, stretching us just enough, that's where flow can happen.
That's it. And here's something I found particularly interesting. Flow is more likely to occur when we're working on something we genuinely care about. It's about finding that sweet spot between challenge and passion.
So that mindless data entry task,
Yeah.
probably not the best candidate for flow,
Right.
but that project you're really passionate about,
Right.
that aligns with your values and interests,
Yeah.
that's where flow can flourish.
Exactly. And remember, flow is a skill that can be cultivated with practice.
Okay,
The more we create those conditions, the more likely we are to experience it.
that's encouraging.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a wrap for part 1. We've unpacked some amazing insights about how our brains work, especially when it comes to tackling those challenging tasks.
Yeah.
We'll be back for part 2 soon.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome back to our deep dive into your brain at work. Last time, we talked about how our brains are like a stage with limited energy.
Right.
And how understanding this can revolutionize our approach to work. Ready to delve into more brain-boosting strategies?
Absolutely. Let's pick up where we left off with flow state.
Oh.
Remember that sweet spot of alertness and focus?
Yeah.
Well, achieving flow consistently requires a bit more finesse than simply having a challenging yet engaging task.
Okay, so what else can we do to invite flow into our work lives more frequently? Does the book offer any specific tips beyond finding that balance between challenge and skill?
It does. One crucial factor is minimizing distractions. Think back to the stage analogy. External interruptions are like noisy audience members disrupting the performance. Internal distractions are like rogue stage hands, messing with the set.
Right.
Both can completely derail your flow.
That makes total sense. It's so hard to get into that groove when you're constantly bombarded by emails or your mind is racing with a million to-dos.
Right.
The book also talks about the importance of having clear goals.
Yes. Clear goals act as a guiding spotlight, directing your mental energy toward a specific outcome. Without them, you're like an actor wandering aimlessly on stage.
So setting clear goals is like giving our brains a roadmap to follow.
Yeah.
It's about, knowing where we're going and how to get there.
Exactly. And immediate feedback is like getting applause from the audience. It reinforces those actions that lead to success and helps you course correct when needed.
That's such a great way to think about it. And it makes me realize that feedback isn't just about, performance reviews or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
about those little wins along the way
Right.
that keep us motivated and moving forward.
Now, shifting gears a bit,
Mhm.
let's talk about something that can be particularly challenging in the workplace, dealing with difficult people.
Ooh, that's a topic I'm sure everyone can relate to.
Right.
We've all encountered those colleagues who seem to drain our energy or trigger these negative reactions in us.
Yeah.
Does the book offer any insights into navigating those tricky social situations?
It dives into a fascinating concept called the SCAR-off model,
Okay.
which stands for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness.
SCAR F, that's catchy. So you're saying our brains are wired to care deeply about these 5 social domains.
Precisely. When any of these domains are threatened, our brains react as if we're facing a physical threat, triggering that fight or flight response. Think about it. A simple email from your boss can sometimes feel like a life or death situation.
Oh, it's so true. That feeling of anxiety or defensiveness
Yeah.
that kind of arises in certain social situations. Now it makes sense why it can feel so intense.
Let's break down each domain a bit.
Okay.
Status refers to our relative importance to others.
Okay.
When we feel our status is threatened, it can trigger feelings of insecurity and anxiety. Imagine that classic office scenario where someone gets publicly criticized in a meeting.
Right.
Their status takes a hit.
Yeah.
And their brain goes into defense mode.
It makes me think about how feedback is delivered.
Right?
If it's done in a way that undermines someone's status,
Yeah.
it's likely to be met with resistance, even if the feedback itself is valid.
Absolutely. The way we communicate, especially when it comes to things like feedback or challenging conversations,
Yeah.
can have a huge impact on how our message is received.
Okay, what about the other domains in the SCAR-F model?
Well, certainty is about being able to predict the future. Okay.
Our brains crave certainty.
Yeah.
And when we're faced with uncertainty,
Yeah.
it can be incredibly stressful.
That makes sense. Think about those times when there are rumors of layoffs or a company restructuring.
Right.
That constant state of not knowing can be lead to chronic stress and anxiety, impacting focus and productivity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have autonomy, which is the feeling of having control over our own choices and actions.
Okay.
Micromanaging bosses are a prime example of how a lack of autonomy can be incredibly demotivating.
Yes. When we feel like we have no agency or control over our work.
Right.
It's really hard to feel engaged or invested in the outcome.
Then there's relatedness,
Okay.
which is about feeling connected to others, feeling like we belong. It's essential for building trust and rapport. Think about a new employee trying to fit in
Yeah.
or a team struggling to gel. When relatedness is low,
Yeah.
it can impact collaboration and productivity
That reminds me of the importance of team building activities.
and creating opportunities for colleagues to connect on a personal level. It's not just about work. It's about fostering a sense of community.
Precisely. And finally, we have fairness,
Okay.
which is about feeling like we're being treated justly.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
I imagine when people perceive a lack of fairness, it can lead to resentment
Yes.
and erode trust,
Right.
which can be toxic for any team.
Absolutely. And the thing is, these 5 domains are deeply intertwined. When one is threatened, it can often impact the others.
So how can we use this SCARF model to navigate those tricky social situations at work?
Yeah.
It seems like it could be a powerful tool for understanding our own reactions and the reactions of others.
It definitely can be. By understanding the SCARF model,
Yeah.
we can become more aware of our own triggers and the triggers of others.
Oh.
If you know that you're particularly sensitive to status threats,
Huh?
you might be more careful about how you give feedback or handle criticism. And if you know a coworker struggles with uncertainty,
Yeah.
you might be more proactive in providing clear information and updates.
It's about recognizing those triggers
Yes.
and finding ways to minimize the threat response.
Right.
So if someone is like reacting defensively,
Yeah.
instead of like getting defensive ourselves,
Right.
we can pause and try to understand what like underlying need might be threatened.
Exactly. And remember, the goal isn't to avoid these threats altogether.
Right.
That's impossible in any workplace. It's about developing strategies to manage our reactions so we can stay focused and productive,
Yeah.
even in like challenging social environments.
That's a great point. It's not about being perfect. It's about like building those emotional intelligence muscles.
Right.
Okay, moving on. The book also dives into the negativity bias. Can you explain that a little further?
The negativity bias refers to our brain's tendency to focus on the negative, even when there's plenty of positive stuff happening. It's like that old saying, one bad apple spoils the bunch. Our brains are wired to pay more attention to negative information because, from an evolutionary perspective, it was often crucial for survival.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
In the past, it was more important to like notice that saber-toothed tiger lurking in the shadows.
Right.
Than it was to like admire the pretty flowers.
Exactly. But in today's world, this negativity bias can lead to unnecessary stress and conflict.
Right.
You know, we dwell on that one critical comment from our boss, even though the rest of the feedback was positive, or we fixate on the one project going wrong, even though everything else is on track.
It's like we have this mental magnifying glass.
Yes.
Constantly searching for those like flaws or potential threats.
Right.
So how do we combat this negativity bias? Does the book offer any solutions?
It does, and it ties back to this idea of consciously choosing what we focus on.
Okay.
So instead of dwelling on that one negative email, we make a conscious effort to acknowledge the positive feedback we receive.
Right.
Or we create like a success journal where we write down all the things that went well each day.
So it's about like actively training our brains to pay more attention to the positive, to like rewire that negativity bias.
Exactly. It's not always easy, but it's essential for like maintaining a healthy mindset and building positive relationships at work. It's about shifting our perspective from what's wrong to what's right.
This is all making perfect sense.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, it can feel a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like, am I supposed to be constantly analyzing my brain's every move?
That's a great question, and it brings up a crucial point. The goal isn't to become some sort of like brain surgeon, constantly dissecting our thoughts and emotions. It's about developing self-awareness.
Okay.
Noticing patterns in our behavior, understanding how our brains work, and then using that knowledge to make small but impactful changes.
That's like learning to drive a car.
Yeah.
At first, you're like hyper aware of every little thing.
Right.
Steering wheel, the pedals, the mirrors. But over time, it becomes second nature. You don't have to like think about each individual action. You just drive.
That's a perfect analogy. The same is true with understanding our brains. The more we practice, the more these strategies become ingrained in our behavior.
Yeah.
And we can start to navigate our workdays with more ease and effectiveness.
That's encouraging. It's about making those small incremental changes that lead to big results over time.
Yes.
Okay, let's dive into another topic that could be a real drain on our mental energy. Decision fatigue.
Decision fatigue.
Yeah.
That feeling of mental exhaustion that sets in after we've made a bunch of decisions. And it's not just about feeling tired.
Yeah.
It actually impacts the quality of our decisions.
The book mentions research showing that like as we make more and more decisions throughout the day, our willpower depletes and we become more likely to make like impulsive or irrational choices.
It's like our decision-making muscles get tired.
Yeah.
Just like our physical muscles after a workout. No wonder that late-night snack choice is often less than healthy.
Oh, that's so true.
Right.
So what can we do about this? Are there like ways to prevent or minimize decision fatigue?
There are. One strategy the book suggests is to reduce the number of decisions we make.
Okay.
Especially on low-stakes things.
Okay.
Think about Steve Jobs and his famous black turtleneck and jeans uniform.
Yeah.
By eliminating that decision each morning, he freed up mental energy for more important choices.
That's a great example. It's about being strategic with our mental energy.
Right.
And recognizing that every decision, no matter how small, takes a toll.
Another strategy is to like batch similar decisions together.
Okay.
So instead of checking email constantly throughout the day, we designate specific times for email and power through it all at once.
Okay.
It's about streamlining our decision-making process.
To conserve mental energy.
That makes sense. It's like creating a system for those like routine decisions.
Yeah.
So we can like focus our brain power on the things that truly matter. Okay, shifting gears again.
Okay.
Let's talk about something that can significantly impact our ability to like focus and make good decisions. Sleep.
Sleep, the foundation of a well-functioning brain.
Right.
We all know we need it.
Yeah.
But the book highlights just how much it truly matters. Research shows that even a small amount of sleep deprivation can have a major impact on cognitive function.
So we're not just talking about like feeling groggy.
Right.
We're talking about like reduced reaction time.
Yes.
Impaired memory. Difficulty concentrating.
Exactly. And chronic sleep deprivation can lead to serious health problems.
Wow.
So it's not just about productivity.
Right.
It's about our overall well-being.
So how much sleep do we really need? Does the book give like a magic number?
It recommends aiming for 7-8 hours of quality sleep per night. And it's not just about quantity.
Right.
It's about quality.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Like creating a relaxing bedtime routine, avoiding caffeine and alcohol before bed.
Yeah.
Making sure your bedroom is like dark and quiet.
Right.
All these things contribute to like a good night's rest.
Absolutely. It's about creating those sleep-conducive conditions so our brains can recharge and be ready for the next day.
Which in turn sets us up for a more productive and effective workday.
Yes.
Okay, let's dive into a topic that's become a bit of a buzzword lately. Mindfulness.
Mindfulness has definitely gained popularity, but it's more than just a trend. The book defines it as the ability to pay attention to the present moment without judgment.
It's about noticing our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without getting, like, swept away by them. Is that right?
Exactly. And research has shown that mindfulness can have a profound impact on our well-being and productivity. It can help us manage stress, reduce anxiety, and improve focus.
So it's not just about, like, relaxation or meditation. It's about being more present and engaged in our work.
Yeah.
Even in those stressful or challenging moments.
That's it. The book suggests that even a few minutes of mindfulness practice each day can make a difference.
So that could be like a guided meditation, a mindful walk in nature, or simply like taking a few deep breaths and paying attention to the sensations of your body.
Exactly. It's about creating space between our thoughts and our reactions so we can make more conscious choices.
That makes sense. Instead of reacting impulsively or getting like caught up in the whirlwind of our thoughts, mindfulness allows us to pause, observe, and respond with more intention.
Precisely. It's a powerful tool for cultivating self-awareness and emotional regulation.
Okay, let's wrap up part 2 with a discussion of something that can be incredibly challenging. Changing our habits. We all have those habits that we know aren't serving us.
Right.
But breaking free from them can feel like an uphill battle.
Changing habits is tough. But it's essential for personal growth and achieving our goals. The book emphasizes the importance of starting small.
Okay.
Focusing on one habit at a time.
That's a good reminder. It's so easy to get overwhelmed if we try to change everything at once.
Yeah.
So like pick one habit you want to focus on and break it down into smaller steps.
Exactly. And the book also talks about the power of repetition. It takes time and effort to rewire those neural pathways.
Yeah.
So don't get discouraged if you don't see results overnight.
It's a process, not a quick fix.
Right.
It's like learning a new skill or building a muscle. It takes consistency and persistence.
The key is to be patient, persistent, and kind to yourself throughout the process.
And that's a wrap for part 2. We've covered some incredibly valuable insights about navigating social situations, combating negativity bias, and understanding the importance of sleep, mindfulness, and habit change. We'll be back soon for part 3.
See you then. Bye. Bye.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into your brain at work. We've covered a lot of ground, from understanding our brain's limited energy to navigating those like tricky social situations. Now, I'm really curious about making those positive changes stick. The book talks about rewarding ourselves. What's the connection there?
Well, it's all about how our brains are wired.
Yeah.
We're naturally driven to seek out rewards. It's a fundamental part of how we learn and motivate ourselves. And when we're trying to establish a new habit, incorporating a reward system can be incredibly effective.
So how does that work, on a neurological level?
Well, the book talks about dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward.
Okay.
When we experience something pleasurable, our brains release dopamine, which reinforces that behavior and makes us more likely to repeat it.
So it's like giving our brains a little pat on the back for a job well done.
Exactly. So if you're trying to make exercise a habit, you might reward yourself with, I don't know, a healthy smoothie or a relaxing bath afterward. Or if you're trying to stick to a writing schedule, you might treat yourself to a coffee break at your favorite cafe when you finish a chapter.
Right.
It's about finding those little rewards that motivate you and make the habit-forming process more enjoyable.
That's a great tip. It's not about denying ourselves.
Right.
It's about finding healthy ways to celebrate our progress. Now let's talk about something that can be a major source of stress and frustration at work. Conflict.
Conflict is inevitable in any workplace, but it doesn't have to be destructive. The key is to understand that conflict often stems from differing perspectives and needs.
So it's not necessarily about someone being right or wrong.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we all see things through our own unique lens.
Exactly. The book emphasizes the importance of understanding how different people approach conflict. Some individuals are naturally more assertive, while others are more conflict avoidant. There's no right or wrong way to approach conflict. It's about recognizing our own tendencies and learning to communicate effectively with those who have different styles.
So how do we navigate those differences in a way that's constructive rather than destructive?
Well, the book offers some great tips, such as using I statements, focusing on shared goals, and practicing active listening. It's about finding ways to address the issue without letting emotions escalate and derail the conversation.
That makes sense. It's about shifting from a me versus you mentality to a we mentality. Instead of trying to win the argument. It's about working together to find a solution that meets everyone's need.
Precisely. It's about seeing conflict as an opportunity for growth and understanding rather than a battle to be won or lost. And speaking of creating a positive and collaborative environment, the book talks about the importance of psychological safety.
Psychological safety. That's a term I've heard before.
But
can you explain what it means in the context of work?
Sure. It refers to an environment where people feel comfortable speaking up, sharing ideas, and taking risks without fear of judgment or retribution.
So it's about feeling safe to be yourself. To express your opinion. And to make mistakes. Without feeling like you're going to be punished or humiliated.
Exactly. Psychological safety is essential for things like innovation, collaboration, and overall team performance. The book highlights how leaders play a crucial role in fostering this type of environment.
So it's not just about having a ping pong table and free snacks. It's about creating a culture where people feel genuinely supported and respected.
That's it. Leaders who create a culture of psychological safety encourage open communication. They actively solicit feedback and celebrate both successes and failures. They recognize that mistakes are opportunities for learning and growth.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about fostering an environment where people feel empowered to contribute their best work. Without fear of being shut down or ridiculed.
Exactly. And the benefits of psychological safety go far beyond just feeling good. Research has shown that teams with high psychological safety are more productive. More engaged, and more likely to come up with creative solutions.
That's a powerful testament to the importance of creating a workplace where people feel safe to be themselves and to take risks.
It truly is. Now, let's wrap up this deep dive with a discussion of something that's often overlooked in the quest for productivity. Rest and recovery. We've talked a lot about pushing our brains to perform at their best. But what about giving them a break?
It's so easy to get caught up in that always-on mentality, constantly striving for more. But I'm starting to realize that rest and recovery are just as important as hard work.
Absolutely. The book emphasizes the importance of things like taking regular breaks throughout the day. As well as scheduling downtime for relaxation and rejuvenation.
I mean, think about it. Our brains are like batteries. We can't expect them to keep running at full capacity if we never give them a chance to recharge.
That's a great analogy. Taking breaks, getting enough sleep, and engaging in activities we enjoy
Right.
are all essential for maintaining our mental energy and focus. Instead of glorifying the hustle and the grind,
Yeah.
let's prioritize our well-being and recognize that rest is not a sign of weakness.
Right.
It's a key ingredient for success.
That's a great message to end on. It's
Yeah.
about finding that balance between pushing ourselves and, giving ourselves permission to rest and recharge.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder, and recognizing that a well-rested brain is a more productive and creative brain.
Well, I think we've covered some incredibly valuable insights from your brain at work today.
I agree. Hopefully, our listeners have gleaned some practical tips for understanding their own brain's limitations and working with their brains rather than against them.
You've given us a lot to think about. As always, the goal of these deep dives is to, equip our listeners with knowledge and strategies they can apply to their own lives. Remember, your brain is a powerful tool,
Yeah.
but it needs care and attention just like any other part of you.
So as you go about your day, remember to fuel your brain, give it breaks,
Uh-huh.
and create an environment where it can thrive.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into your brain at work. We'll catch you next time.